All right, so 6 decades. 6 decades. The Rolling Stones, that kind of staying power. I mean,
Yeah.
how do you even process that? How does a band come out of, you know, like smoky London clubs playing Chicago blues and become like a stadium-filling absolute giant 60 years later? It's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
It really is. And that's what we're going to try to unpack today. I mean, how did they do it?
Yeah.
We've got this like mountain of material. We've got histories, analyses, firsthand accounts, all this stuff about the Stones. And our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to figure out like what are the core elements that made them last so long and what kind of impact have they had, not just on music, but on like culture itself. Big question.
Big questions, absolutely. And, the sources we've got really paint this vivid picture.
Yeah.
You see them not just like riding the waves of history, but actually shaping them.
Absolutely. And it all starts in this really specific time place, right? 1960s London. The music scene is just exploding. And these guys, they were obsessed with American blues.
Oh.
Can you imagine being there in those clubs, hearing the raw power of Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, like right there in front of you?
It must have been electrifying to hear that sound raw and direct. It's no wonder they were hooked.
Totally hooked. It was like a revelation, right? This was the music they wanted to make.
Right. And they weren't just passively listening. They were studying it, absorbing it, trying to understand what made it tick, the emotion, the stories, the whole vibe. It became like part of their musical DNA.
And the heart of it all, right? The core.
Mm.
Mick Jagger and Keith Richards. These two, their connection, it actually goes all the way back to primary school. Then they reconnected later through their shared love of, the early rock and roll pioneers, Chuck Berry, Little Richard, those guys.
Right.
And that connection, that shared passion for the roots of rock and roll, that's what formed the bedrock of their partnership, this incredible creative force they became. What do you think it was about that early connection that made them click so powerfully?
Well, it's more than just liking the same music, right? It's like they understood it on the same level. They felt it the same way, almost like a shared instinct.
Right.
That early bond over those records, it was about recognizing like a kindred spirit musically, like they were on the same wavelength.
Yeah. And they get their first taste of success in 1963 with their version of Chuck Berry's Come On.
Yeah.
People definitely started paying attention, but it was just the beginning.
Totally. That was like the first step.
Yeah.
The real game changer came when they started writing their own stuff, their own voice, their own experiences, pouring it all into the music. That's when things really took off.
Yeah. You think about songs like As Tears Go By, which is this surprisingly beautiful ballad, especially for such a young band.
Yeah.
And then you've got The Last Time with that much more like assertive sound. These weren't just like blues covers anymore. This was the Rolling Stones sound emerging.
This is them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how important was that move toward original music, especially during the British invasion, when so many bands were trying to break through?
Oh, it was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. A lot of those British invasion bands, they were great at interpreting American music, but the ones that really made a lasting mark, they found their own voice. And that's what the Stones did. These early songs, they were a declaration. They were saying, we're not just here to play the hits, we're here to create something new.
Absolutely. And then the late 60s hit, and you see this really fascinating shift in their sound.
Yeah.
They're not abandoning the blues, not at all, but they're branching out. They're getting into more rock territory.
Okay.
You hear it on albums like Beggar's Banquet and Let It Bleed.
Oh, those are classic.
Yeah. There's this mix of country folk, even some psychedelic touches, all woven in. What do you think was driving this evolution in their sound? Was it just like artistic restlessness, or was there more to it?
Well, it's interesting. It's almost like they absorbed the whole vibe of the late 60s, the experimentation, the pushing of boundaries, and then they filtered it through their own blues rock lens. They weren't just following trends. They were taking these new sounds and making them their own. It probably brought in a whole bunch of new fans, too.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It was a smart move, really.
But that era wasn't all like musical breakthroughs and experimentation, right? There was a dark side, too. The Altamont Speedway concert in 1969, it was chaotic, tragic. It really cast a shadow over the whole era. How do you think that event, that tragedy, impacted the band and how people saw them?
It's a really complex question. Because, Altamont was this stark contrast to the idealism of the late 60s. It was a wake-up call, a reminder that things could go very wrong. For the Stones, I think it forced them to confront their own image, the myth they'd created around themselves. And it showed everyone that even within the rock and roll dream, there could be darkness. It's a difficult moment in their history, and it definitely made both the band and their audience face some uncomfortable truths.
And then you get into the 70s and 80s. A lot of bands from the 60s, they struggled to stay relevant.
Yeah.
But the Stones, they just kept finding ways to connect with people. They even experimented with disco on some girls. And then you had Tattoo You with its raw energy. How did they do it? How did they keep adapting and stay in the game for so long?
I think their willingness to experiment is a big part of it,
Yep.
even with genres that didn't seem like a natural fit at first. Like some girls, it has those disco influences, but it still sounds like the Stones. It's got that swagger. They weren't just chasing trends. They were finding ways to make those trends their own.
Yeah, it's like they were always evolving but never losing their essence.
Exactly.
And let's talk about their live shows. They built a reputation for these incredible high-energy performances. People still talk about seeing them decades ago. Like, it was a life-changing experience.
Oh, yeah. Their live shows are legendary. That's where their music truly comes alive. That raw energy, the connection with the audience. It's something special. It's
Yeah.
more than just a concert, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's an event,
Yeah,
a ritual almost,
absolutely. It's a huge part of their legacy.
for sure.
And, of course, you can't talk about the Stones without talking about the individual members.
Right.
Jagger and Richards, obviously, they're the core. But Brian Jones, in the early days, he was so important in shaping their sound.
He was.
That early bluesy sound, he
Mhm.
was like the architect of it. But why do you think his role sometimes gets overlooked?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Jones was crucial in those early years. His understanding of the blues, his musical flair, it was all there. But his later struggles, his departure from the band, it kind of overshadowed things. The story tends to focus on Jagger and Richards, the partnership that endured. But Jones's contribution to their sound shouldn't be forgotten. It was foundational.
It's a shame it gets lost sometimes. Then you've got Mick Taylor joining in the late 60s, early 70s. His guitar playing brought a whole new level of virtuosity to their live shows.
Oh, absolutely.
Like a different kind of energy. How did his technical skill affect the band's sound during his time with them?
Well, Taylor brought this real guitar prowess to the table. You can hear it especially in their live recordings from that period. His melodic playing, his solos, it added a new dimension, particularly in those extended jams they were known for. His time with the band was relatively short, but his impact on their live sound was significant. He brought a real fire to those performances.
And then the bedrock of their sound for so long, Charlie Watts.
Ah, Charlie.
That steady jazz-influenced drumming, it was the foundation of their rhythm. What was it about his style that made it so essential to the Rolling Stones?
Watts' drumming was, well, it wasn't flashy. It wasn't about showing off. It was precise, understated, and it had this incredible groove, this swing rooted in jazz. It gave them this rock-solid foundation, this rhythmic sophistication that allowed the other members to really shine. It's funny because his contribution is so essential, but it's almost easy to miss because it's so subtle.
Yeah, it's like the foundation of a house. You don't always see it, but the whole thing rests on it.
Exactly. It's that important.
And then you have Bill Wyman on bass, holding it all down, contributing to that signature groove. It really was this unique combination of personalities and talent.
It was. Each member brought something different to the mix, their own unique flavor. And when you put it all together, it created something special, something that couldn't be replicated. That's the magic of the Stones, right? The chemistry, the alchemy of it all.
Totally. Now, moving beyond the music, their cultural impact is undeniable.
Oh, absolutely.
They became these symbols of rebellion, of a certain kind of rock and roll lifestyle, a little bit dangerous, a little bit edgy. How much of that image was intentional? And how much was just them being themselves?
It's hard to say, right?
Yeah.
There was definitely a conscious effort to cultivate an image that would appeal to a younger audience, an
Yeah.
audience that was looking to break free from the old rules. But a lot of it was probably also just them living their lives, being caught up in the rock and roll world. The lines between what was real and what was performance, they probably got blurry sometimes.
Yeah, the myth and the reality feeding into each other.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's part of what made them so fascinating, so compelling.
And when you look at their whole story, it's a story of perseverance.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they went through so much internal friction, so many changes in the music industry, the world around them constantly shifting, and yet they just kept going.
Yeah.
What do you think fueled that incredible resilience?
Well, I think their passion for music was a huge factor.
Yeah.
And the creative partnership between Jagger and Richards, that was the engine. Even when things were tough, even when they were going through personal struggles or the music scene was changing around them, they had this shared drive to create and perform that kept them going, I think.
It's amazing. And one of the stories that really struck me was how they were actually banned from Japan early in their career because of drug arrests.
Yeah, that's a wild one.
But then they went on to become absolutely massive in Japan.
It's pretty incredible.
It's kind of a testament to their global appeal, how perceptions can change over time.
It shows you the power of the music. It transcended those initial negative perceptions, those legal barriers. It resonated with people on a deeper level, and that's what matters. Their artistry won out in the end.
And then there's the story of Keith Richards falling out of a coconut tree and surviving. It just adds to this whole myth of him being, like, indestructible.
Yeah, it's crazy.
How much do these stories, these almost unbelievable anecdotes, contribute to the band's legend?
Oh, they're a big part of it. They make it seem larger than life, right? Like, they play by their own rules. It feeds into the whole rock and roll mystique, that sense of danger and excitement. It's part of what makes them so enduring, so captivating.
And for all their fame and notoriety, they've always maintained this connection with their fans.
Yeah, they have.
They even called them the sixth member of the band. It's pretty remarkable for a band of their stature.
It's pretty unique, and it's smart. It makes the fans feel like they're part of something bigger. They're not just passive listeners. They're part of the journey.
Right. So, for any aspiring musicians out there, what are some key takeaways from the Rolling Stones' incredible run? What can they learn from these guys?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's about staying true to your roots.
Yeah.
The Stones never forgot where they came from. That love for the blues, it's always been there. And it gave their music a depth, a timeless quality that a lot of bands lack.
Like the foundation, right?
Exactly. You got to have a strong foundation to build on.
And they were always willing to evolve, to experiment with new sounds. That's how they stay relevant, how they avoided becoming a nostalgia act.
Absolutely. You can't be afraid to try new things, to push the boundaries of your sound.
And of course, the Jagger-Richards partnership, it wasn't always easy. There were definitely bumps along the way. But that creative core, that shared vision, it's been essential to their success.
Without a doubt. It shows the power of collaboration, of finding someone who complements your strengths and challenges you to be better.
And you can't overstate the importance of their live shows. They didn't just play music, they put on a show.
Yeah. They built a reputation for being one of the best live bands in the world.
And that connection with the audience, that energy, it's something you can't replicate on a record.
Yeah.
And lastly, their resilience. They weathered so many storms, personal, professional, everything.
Yeah.
And they just kept going. That's a powerful lesson, not just for musicians, but for anyone.
It's about having that inner drive, that passion that keeps you going even when things get tough. The music industry is tough, but any creative field is tough. You got to have that fire in your belly to make it.
Absolutely. Now, thinking outside the box a little bit, their ability to navigate controversy, it definitely kept them in the spotlight, whether they planned it that way or not.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Not saying it's a roadmap for everyone, but it definitely played a role in their image and their legend.
It did. They weren't afraid to push buttons, to challenge norms, and sometimes that can generate a lot of attention, even if it's not always positive.
Right. And despite being these global superstars, they managed to maintain a certain level of privacy, which probably helped them deal with all the pressure and scrutiny.
Yeah, finding that balance between your public persona and your private life is so important,
It's got to be tough.
especially when you're under that kind of microscope.
Yeah. But it seems like they found a way to make it work.
They did. They managed to keep some things sacred, some things just for themselves.
So at the end of the day, the story of the Rolling Stones, it's much more than just a bunch of hit songs.
Oh, way more.
It's this epic tale of evolution and resilience. It's about the power of rock and roll, but it's also about the human spirit. It's about passion, creativity, and just plain old not giving up.
It's a story that continues to inspire, and it teaches us a lot about how to navigate not just the music world, but life itself.
And as we wrap up our deep dive today, we've seen their journey from those smoky London clubs fueled by their love of the blues to becoming these global icons of rock and roll.
It's been quite a ride.
It really has. We've talked about the changes in their music, the key players, their impact on culture, and all the ups and downs along the way.
We've seen how their deep connection to the blues, their willingness to evolve, that incredible partnership between Jagger and Richards, the energy of their live shows, and their sheer resilience all played a part in creating this extraordinary legacy.
But here's a final question for you to ponder. Beyond the pure power of their music, what do you think is the single biggest factor that's allowed them to stay not just active, but relevant, exciting, captivating for over 6 decades? Is it their constant reinvention, their rebellious image, their business savvy, or is it something else, something maybe a little harder to define? It's a question we're thinking about. What's the secret sauce that makes them so enduring?
It's a great question. And I think the answer might be different for everyone,
Yeah,
but it's definitely something worth exploring. It makes you think about what it takes to create something that lasts, something that connects with people across generations.
absolutely.
It's a mystery worth unraveling.
It is. And that's a wrap for today. Until next time, keep those turntables spinning.
And keep exploring the stories behind the music. You never know what you might discover.